welcome. I'm Marge Schneider.
I'm David Schneider, and today we have Joe Naylor on camera.
Yes, and we are the hosts of the very first broadcast of Meet Your Neighbors. Today we're on site in the awesome Brantford Community Garden, which later will take you a tour to show you how beautiful and all of this produce is growing here. And we have the privilege today to be with three exceptional people in our community. We're here with Connie Drysdale, one of the founders of the community garden, Carol Sohnlein, who's the president, and Melon who's the director of the Seed, Weed, and Feed program. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having us. Welcome. Connie, I'd like to ask you a question first.
Okay.
Fine. As one of the founders, when and how did the community garden get started, and also what were some of the initial goals?
So in 2008, right in the midst of the big financial crisis, a group of people in Brantford got together, and basically we wanted to brainstorm some ideas to help our neighbors, because we knew that a lot of our neighbors in Brantford were suffering. So we all met at Orchard House and spent a couple hours just going over ideas, and at some point I said, why doesn't Brantford have a community garden? There are so many community gardens along the shoreline. Why doesn't Brantford have one? Nobody could answer that question. So I said, I'll start one.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I had never started a community garden before. I don't consider myself an expert gardener, but I fortunately was able to pull together some very expert gardeners, two of them which are sitting next to me.
That's so wonderful.
So in 2008, we started meeting at my house. I, at the very beginning, went to Unc DeRoss, our first selectman, and asked him for some suggestions of people I could recruit in this effort. He put me in touch with two very important people. One was Eunice LaSala, which everybody knows. She's probably involved in every volunteer effort in Brantford. And the other was Alex Paluzzi from Parks and Rec. And Alex brought together many, many resources. So 2009 was our first growing season. We did a lot of work over the winter, and by the spring we were able to offer plots to the community.
That's great.
Fantastic.
How about, so we really cover the goals too, of course. So in terms of fruition of a project, they normally say it takes a village. So did it take a village, and in this case, and also who were some of the active supporters, and what kinds of services did they provide?
Well, I was very naive going into this, and so I started knocking on doors, asking people for favors, and you're right, it does take a village, and the amount of community support that we got was just amazing.
Oh, that is so wonderful.
I can tell you some of the people who helped us. Chris Guolo Engineering for free did our surveying. We had a guy with a tractor, Steve Duhamel, who came, and this used to be a school playground.
Yeah.
So there was no soil here, and he with his tractor prepared the soil. Let's see, I've got my little other people, a little cheat sheet. The Branford Land Trust went into some of their property and cut down the cedar posts for our fence. Lonnie Reed, our representative, was able to get us 2 grants. So we were able to buy the deer fence and the gates and some other things. Brantford Building Supply gave us great discounts on many materials. Brantford Public Works came out with their post hole digger and their trench digger, and that enabled us to bury our fence. Enterprise Plumbing laid the plumbing under the ground for free.
Wow.
Words by Jen Payne put our website up, and Martha Link Walsh designed our logo.
Wow.
KNG Graphics sometimes just didn't even charge us for our publicity material. And then, of course, all of the gardeners that dedicate
awesome.
so
That is-
much of their time.
That really is the whole village.
Not very many people turned me down.
Oh,
Wow.
magnificent.
That's wonderful.
That's really beautiful.
All right, so I'm going to turn to Carol now.
All right.
And Carol, as president, how does the garden operate?
Right now we have 21 plots here. We have 3 satellite plots over at the Stand Restaurant.
Oh,
We run 3 fundraisers a year to support the budget, and we've been very fortunate to get grants from the high school choral group a year and a half ago. Made us a recipient of one of their fundraisers. We just received one from one of our gardeners who was in a law firm who gave out grants. So we've been very fortunate to keep it going by funding through the fundraisers. Our first one is the plant sale that Bioso Farms very generously takes our seeds and nurtures them in their greenhouse, and we come back and put them into the 6-packs, and then they keep them till they're ready, and we bring them to the green. That's been a very,
Wow, what
very
an
successful
enormous help.
fundraiser.
They provide all of the materials, all of the tending.
That
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
awesome.
very.
Yeah, and
very
it's,
good. Excellent.
And it's all gratis.
Oh
yes,
That's
And it-
amazing.
it gives us the opportunity to choose what we're going to grow here, because we have some favorites. That there's one tomato that everybody loves in here, the Sun Gold, that we all put our orders in. Our second fundraiser is our produce sale, which is usually in August, and that's our biggest one.
Okay.
We partner with Brantford Garden Club for some of these fundraisers, or they send ladies to volunteer to help us. So that's another feature of our fundraisers. The produce sale is the big one, but we always have flowers, and the garden club ladies help us by arranging them and doing these beautiful arrangements. You know, because
Yeah,
you're one of them.
I
You've
actually
done
love
it.
helping.
We
yes.
also run a bake sale with that. In the last fundraiser, which is coming up the end of September, is under the tent with the Brantford art group. We do our flowers, we do our produce, what's left that time of the year, and we do coffee and a big bake sale.
Wow.
And we've had tremendous support from the community on all our sales.
So the village
That's-
never left.
And no, and our gardeners, when they sign on, that's their obligation is to participate in at least 2 of the sales to help raise the funds and
Oh.
to participate in
I
work
didn't know
days
that.
here.
That's great.
Yeah, and actually the fundraisers are more fun than anything. It's a big social event for us, so we
is.
really enjoy it.
Yeah.
So you answered most of the next 2 questions that I had, except for a part of it was what are some of the costs that are involved, some of the significant ones?
Our most significant is liability insurance.
Okay.
You know, that's significant, something we need obviously to protect all of us. And there's maintenance that every year, hoses and fence repairs. So at this point, we haven't done a major repair yet, but we're funding for it, so we're good for that.
Great.
But it's really just incidentals after we've done the seed, weed, and feed is separate. That
Yes.
Elaine will talk about.
And,
Yes.
and do you get any non-cash donations, like materials
Oh
of
yes,
some sort?
in the beginning especially, we were given tools and chicken wire, and whatever people came up
ongoing
with in their
things
basement.
Like manure or
Well, manure is
that's
that's a that's a current problem.
I consider that the treasure, though, for the garden, right?
Well, we don't currently, if anybody out there knows of any, we don't have a source of manure because the
Oh.
2 people who were so generously delivering it are not able to do it anymore, and that's the big thing, having it
So
delivered.
let me interrupt. Maybe one of our viewers can help in that capacity.
Yeah.
That would be
it
great.
really wonderful.
Yeah, and the town provides wood chips for us to keep the paths clear. And
Oh,
I mean, I just send
great.
an email to Alex Paluzzi, and within a few days, there's a big pile of wood chips.
That's
so
great.
So,
So the town is there, and that's wonderful.
Yeah.
As far as benefits and being a part of the garden club, the community garden, so the main benefit is the produce, but besides that, what other benefits do people who participate get from this?
oh,
The good feeling you get out of it.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So right.
It's a very social group. They support each other. We help each other. I mean, if somebody's having trouble with their plants, everybody will come over and give an opinion. We try to help. The one things I enjoy most coming down here is one, seeing the other gardeners, but just walking through and seeing what everybody's doing, because everybody does something different.
Yeah.
There's some success, some failure, and every year you come away with, I'm going to try that, what
I
that
know,
person
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
And I think
I
the
know.
sharing amongst you too is
Oh, it's
there.
yes, it's a very
Yeah.
diverse group, and I've had a chance to meet some really wonderful individuals that
It's
I
so
wouldn't
wonderful.
have otherwise.
That's great. Well, thank you.
Yeah. So now, Melane, we come to you.
Oh.
So Connie had mentioned to us previously that her background was in molecular biology, but she referred to you as the gardening expert. But she also gave you another title that gives me a chuckle because it's quite a title to live up to. But knowing you, Melane, I know you live up to it. But
She
calls
does.
you the gardening goddess.
It's only because of the hat.
So can you please share with us a little bit
Yes.
about your background and how it related to gardening?
Well, I grew up in a dairy farm in northeastern Pennsylvania, and we always had a large garden. And I have a distinct memory of following my grandmother down the row. She was drawing a furrow in the ground, and I was planting the beans. So, maybe I was 5, 6, 7 years old. So we're pushing 50 years now that I've been gardening. So not always over the years, but when I could, I put in a garden wherever I was living.
But it sounds like it's based with such love and connection.
It was. I mean, you took me off of the farm, but you didn't take the farm out of me.
Yeah,
it was always
and
there.
I'll tell you, Melane, one of our daughter-in-laws has the same exact background.
Yeah.
And she works in New York City, but her background is on a dairy farm
Yeah.
in PA.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And she's so connected to
Yeah.
that part of her life. So, as director of the Seed, Weed, and Feed program, what are the goals?
The goal of the Seed, Weed, and Feed program is to provide fresh, organically grown produce to both the Brantford Food Pantry, which is a service to only residents of Brantford who are in need, and we also provide produce to the community dining room, which is in Brantford, but it serves people from towns along the shoreline. And they also have a takeout service from there, and they have home deliveries to shut-ins. I think Connie's helped with some of those home deliveries to
I'm a
shut-ins.
backup
driver
for
Right.
That's so great.
Substitute
driver for
And those are mostly Brantford or maybe even North Brantford. Mostly Brantford.
yeah.
Mostly Brantford.
Yeah.
So that's our goal, is to provide this produce.
Yeah, it's
that
so,
that in many ways we try to grow stuff here that they can't get in other ways. So, for example, at the food pantry, where both of you volunteer,
Yes.
it seems to me that you can get maybe from the Connecticut Food Bank carrots,
yes,
potatoes,
the
the staples. So we've made it a point here at Seed, Weed, and Feed to try to grow those things that you can't get as readily. So that's why we grow a lot of the greens, Swiss chard, kale, many different varieties of lettuce, leeks, things that just won't come from elsewhere.
It's fabulous. And as a volunteer of the pantry, I can tell you that people are so excited when it comes in. It's so beautiful.
They truly appreciate what they receive.
They do. So how extensive, Melane, is the program, and what are some of the details of the operation?
Well, we have a roughly 1,000 square foot plot, and it consists of 8 raised beds that are, hopefully we'll see in a little while, they're lined in wood, and there's an irrigation system. That's not how we started 10 years ago. We've come a long way.
How new is that irrigation?
The irrigation, one of the community gardeners last spring, not this spring, but the year before, she said, wouldn't it be nice if?
Wow.
And then she said, and I'll install it. So she did, with help from other
That's
volunteers. And it's made a tremendous difference in terms of being able to take care of the gardens.
Absolutely, yeah. And aside from you, who does all the work? Do you have a lot of volunteers? Do you have enough volunteers? Are the youth involved?
Okay, so many members of the Brantford Community Gardens volunteer, members of the Brantford Garden Club volunteer, and members of the town, like the two of you, volunteer. People who just maybe had a garden in the past and just want to keep, like the program, want to keep their hands dirty, keep their hands dirty.
Right.
Or maybe people who they want to learn something more about gardening. Maybe because then they can extend it to their own home or take on a plot here.
Yes, absolutely.
And yes, we do have some youth involvement. We have in the past offered community service hours for the Brantford High School students.
Great.
My son did some of
Oh,
those.
that's great.
One of the gardeners here, her daughter, she got almost all of her community service hours by
that's
working here at
wonderful.
Seed, Weed, and Feed and at the sales. So that is an option. It gets announced every year at the high school that if they want to come work, they can.
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. So, Melane, do you have any plans or visions to improve the Seed, Weed, and Feed program?
Well, one of the things I'd really like to do to improve the program, well, there's two things. One is we always can use more volunteers. And if you are interested in volunteering in any way, you can just go to the Google Brantford Community Gardens, and there's an email address, and you can send an email and say, please put me on your volunteer list, and I will do that. And the other way I'd like to improve the garden is I've been doing this for 10 years now, and I think we could use a new infusion of ideas and energy. So I would love to have somebody, if there's anybody out there interested in actually coordinating the program with me, being responsible for setting up some of the work parties and the harvest and things like that. I'd
I'd like to
help.
add to your plea, Melane, because if there is anyone out there, please don't hesitate to come forward, because you will have one of the top mentors.
Oh.
And that's really important when we want to expand our skill or our ability. So please reach out.
Yeah, I'm looking for somebody to share the responsibility with on the job training.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I think this might be a wonderful time to show our viewers by taking a tour of the gardens and see some of the awesome produce. Although we know this is the tail end of the season, the summer growing season, and a lot has been harvested, but there's still some.
Not really.
Okay.
Because we do succession cropping here.
Okay.
Right.
And when we come into the garden, sometimes we'll come in as early as March. It depends on how cold and wet it is. Sometimes we don't get in here till early May. But if we get in here early enough, we can plant lettuce in a bed. Then we'll plant cucumbers in the same bed after the lettuce is gone, and then we can plant lettuce yet again. So many of these beds, we get 2 or 3 crops out of them. So really, just the past 2 weekends, we planted for the fall. So there's a bed of lettuce, 2 beds of escarole. We've yet to harvest the leeks. The cucumbers are still going, and the tomatoes are still going on. So it's not bad at all.
Yes.
And then in October, you'll be probably getting in the garlic?
Yes.
That's
So
right.
yeah.
That's
So
right.
we generally have 3 work parties every year. One in the spring to put in those early spring crops. One in late May to put in the tomatoes, cucumbers, those things that are heat loving. Then another work party, which is what we just had, to put in the fall crops. And then in late October, early November, garlic is unlike most of the other crops.
Absolutely.
You plant it in the fall, late October, early November, and you harvest it again the following July, which then opens up the beds for you to plant something for the fall. So yeah, we'll be having another work party this fall.
Fantastic.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
And
And some people have cold frames and are growing
Yes.
things in their cold frames in the
Abs-
cold weather.
Absolutely. You can keep it growing.
Over
and
winter.
it can start as early as March with our cold crops. I mean,
Yep.
we can
Yeah.
start planting in our
Yep.
own gardens as well.
Yep.
So,
We'll do the tour.
Let's
go
go.
see.
Oh my God. Hi, I just wanted to show you how well we grow some things at Branford Community Gardens. One of the gardeners this year decided that she wanted to grow corn, and as you can see, it's growing quite well this year. We've had a very hot and wet until the past 2 weeks, summer. This would be considered more of a summer crop, but if we want to look more at a fall crop, we can look down below here. And you can see the Daikon radishes growing. They are best grown in the fall because they like to grow into the cooler seasons. And now there's a few more things I'd like to show you. And now I'd like to show you some other things that we've grown this year in the garden. These are some of there are a variety of watermelon called Mini Love watermelon, and it's a mini melon. And for years I've tried to grow melons and had no luck whatsoever, but these are fantastic. I grew 4 of them at my own house, these beautiful watermelons here, and they are crisp and juicy and sweet, and so that's something that's now on my must-grow list every year. And the other thing that people here in the Northeast maybe think they can't grow as well are sweet potatoes. I can't show you the sweet potatoes because they're under the ground, but these are the sweet potato vines.
And you can see there's quite a bed of them here. So even though you may think of sweet potatoes as being more of a southern crop, there are certain varieties that we can grow here in the Northeast and quite successfully. And the nice thing about sweet potatoes too is that you can store them very well for the winter.
Can I add also,
yep.
Melane, sweet potato vines are such a beautiful addition in plant in container
Yes, they are.
plants, because they're vines and they hang down, and there's different varieties, and they're really beautiful.
They're
as
beautiful
well.
in arrangements.
They
Absolutely.
are, yes.
And we'll move to the next. Now I'm standing in the midst of the seed, weed, and feed plot, which are all these raised beds going from the tomatoes, 2 beds of escarole, a bed of kale. The empty spot here, remember I was talking about the succession plantings? The empty spot is going to be used for a little bit more lettuce that I'm going to put in a couple of weeks. We also have cucumbers and leeks, and we go beyond that as well. So I mentioned they're raised beds, and they have an irrigation system. This is PVC piping. It has holes drilled in it, and it's on a timer attached to the watering spigots. And so they go on for a couple of hours in the morning, and it keeps the beds pretty well watered. And now there's more to show you somewhere else. Here's another crop that most people wouldn't think of us growing here in the Northeast, but if you have a hot summer, we can grow quite well as well here in the Northeast, and that's okra. And you can see the okra pods right here. There's both red okra, which you can see back in here, and green okra. And I've never seen okra plants grow this tall before, but we've had a hot summer. The other thing I'd like to point out is a plant that's in the broccoli family. It's called Spigarello, and it does not form a head like broccoli. You actually eat the leaves. They're really good sautéed with garlic and salt and pepper. You might want to blanch them first. They can be blanched and frozen and kept to eat over the winter as well. A little bit of an unusual crop, not something you would necessarily find in the produce market, but something that you can grow in your garden. And we have a few more things to show you. Not only do we grow produce here, vegetables at the community garden, but we also, many of the gardeners grow flowers. And one in particular that we introduced to the garden this year and we're encouraging the gardeners to grow was amaranth. Amaranth is a grain. It can be grown to maturity, and you get these little kernels, and they can be popped like popcorn. But the one big reason I was really encouraging the gardeners to grow it is because it's so beautiful and it can be used in cut arrangements. But they also have been growing zinnias, which are here. Zinnias are wonderful butterfly magnets. They provide nectar to the butterflies as well as making wonderful cut flowers. And that's all for that. All the vegetables I've shown you so far are examples of annuals. Asparagus is an example of a perennial. Hopefully you can see down here, they look like the stalks of asparagus. In the spring they come up, you get the asparagus stalks like you would buy in the grocery store, and then what happens is as the season goes on, the asparagus ferns out, and that is the plant's way of gathering energy to grow a bigger root system and more asparagus stalks for the following growing season. And this is a particularly beautiful patch of asparagus fern, and asparagus can last upwards of 15 to 20 years. It's a perennial, and you just keep it going every year. And we have some more to show you. And there's a crop that we do grow here that you do think of growing in New England, and that is the winter squash, the butternut squash. So not only do we grow those plants that I've shown you that are maybe a little bit unusual or that you might not think of growing here, but we do grow many of the ones that you would expect to grow. And finally, I'd like to introduce you to Tithonia, which is also known as Mexican sunflower. It is a wonderful nectar producer for the butterflies. You can see that it grows quite tall. We are filming now the beginning of September, and this will go on producing flowers until frost. So it's a wonderful plant to have in the garden. And I hope that by seeing all these things, you've been encouraged either to garden yourself at home or to join us here at Brantford Community Gardens. Residents of the town of Brantford are welcome to apply to join the garden. You go online to Brantford Community Gardens, Google us, and there's an application that you put in and have your name go onto a waiting list. And we welcome people of all levels of gardening, from the totally new to the very experienced. Thank you.
So we want to thank the three of you so very, very much. First of all, not only for taking your time to be with us today, but today viewers, today is hot and humid, and they are sweating. We're all sweating, but we somehow got through it, and we thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time.
And
We really
we would
appreciate
like to take the opportunity to thank you for this wonderful invitation.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
Well, it was worth being here.
Yeah, really. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye, happy gardening.
So, Marge,
Yes.
just a word to our viewers.
Please.
If you have any questions, any suggestions, including suggestions about people who you'd like to see us interview, you could get in touch with us by emailing at Marge, M-A-R-G-E, David, P-E-A-C-E, Marge David Peace at gmail.com.
Yes, we really look forward to hearing from you, because this is an extraordinary community with so many people. I like to say ordinary but extraordinary, and I don't mean ordinary in the simple sense, because I just mean we don't have to be the rich and the famous, but we all have gifts and we all have hobbies and interests, so please share them with us, because perhaps it'll be wonderful to feature you or your friends, your colleagues, your neighbors, so please reach out to us.
Just to let you know also that you could go to the website brantfordtv.org to find out the schedule of our next Meet Your Neighbors, which will be somewhere around mid-October or a little later.
So please like our Meet Your Neighbors page on Facebook. And let me tell you, the viewers, just for a moment, what our October broadcast will be focused on. The theme is the environment. We will be interviewing Meg Kilgore, who's the organizer of BYO Brantford, which is a growing movement to ban the single-use plastic bags. Yeah. Also, we'll be talking with Dan McGowan, who's the manager of the transfer station and the recycling center. And he's going to focus on the challenges of plastic in our community and beyond it, and help us as residents to understand what we can do to help protect the beautiful shoreline community that we live in. So please stay tuned for October for another broadcast of
Meet Your Neighbors.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now.